only way is the right way. I might say, nobody doing it better. Y'all some lightweights. Malik Wright, up all day and all night, pushing all the buttons up to something till it's alright. He looking at it from all sides and angles. Got a stripes on his body like he played for the Bengals. Oh man, there's no one discussing it. They came, they stayed, they either did it or done it. Man, I love it, cause all they ever do is win. So kick back, relax, the TWSN.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Sit Down with Malik Wright, presented by the Right Way Sports Network. I'm your host, Malik Wright. Joined by my co-host, as always, on the ones and twos, Danny Alameda. We got a lot of stuff to get into, a lot of stuff to talk about. Before we do, make sure you guys do us a favor. Give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live, when we upload content from the TWSN studios and we talk about all the happenings around the league. It was an active trade deadline. Teams that wanted to get better, got better. Teams that saw the season as what it was, punted. Let me just start off by saying this. It's nice to know that the phones at Paycor Stadium were working. It's nice. It's nice to know that they saw that there was a need at cornerback, or they saw that there was a need on the defensive line, whether that be the edge rusher or the interior. It's nice to know that they realized that our running back, Zach Moss, is going to miss the remainder of the season due to an unforeseen neck injury. So you know what we're going to go out there and do? We're going to go out there and we're going to trade for our running back in Khalil Herbert, who's been inactive and not even being utilized by the Chicago Bears, who's fell out of favor with them. Meanwhile, all of the concern, all of the complaints had been pointed at the defensive side of the ball. Every fan of the Cincinnati Bengals who follows this team very closely could look at it and say, hey, you know what? We struggle in the pass rush department. The only true pass rusher that we have on this team is Trey Hendrickson that people fear. People who work regular 9-to-5 jobs could see that cornerback was an issue on this team. Meanwhile, that and this is why I talked about it yesterday. And I said, it's not just enough to be involved in conversations. It's not just enough to say that you have interest out there, that you're quote unquote being aggressive. You have to get the job done. I'm not happy. And judging by the result of the fan base on X or Twitter, and even in the comment section, you guys aren't happy. I really wish that I could have come on here and we could have talked about the Bengals went out there, they traded a fourth for Azeez Ojulari, or they went out there and they went out there and they tried to make moves on the interior of the defensive line to improve this team. I really wish that that was the sentiment that I came on this show with. I hate to be negative. I hate to bring up what could have been. I hate to bring up the bad. But if I don't do it, who's going to do it? So I'm going to start off by saying this. Be clear and understand what's taking place right before our very own eyes. At the end of the season, if Lou Anarumo was to lose his job, or with those people that are out there that are saying, hey, Lou Anarumo needs to be gone, look at what just took place. Honestly speaking, look at what just took place before you call for a guy's job. Because we all could see that the defense was an issue. We all could see that the defense was a spot that needed fixing. And we all thought going into free agency that they would have the wherewithal to say, hey, you know what? We're going to do everything in our power to leave no stone unturned to make sure we bring in the proper reinforcements to help this defense. Lou lost his starting cornerback. Nothing was done to address that. Pass rush we recognized early in the season, outside of Trey Hendrickson, it wasn't going to come from anyone else. What you had hoped to gain from a Sheldon Rankins and BJ Hill tandem, you haven't gotten, partly because of the injuries and people not being you know, being available for the team. But you do nothing to address these positions. What does that say to your team? What does that say to this fan base? Does it say that you want to win? No, not to me. To me, this feels like this is a letdown. This feels like a letdown, wholeheartedly. Daniel, there's more that I want to add, but I want to let you get in here and kind of give your thoughts real quickly.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think that the frustrating part, and this is the part of the conversation I want to go to in a little bit, is what would it have looked like enough to the fan base and to us to say, hey, we're confident in this front office. We're confident in what they're doing, because the day started out great, right? And that was a necessary move. And I think that the hard part about this conversation is we are going to kind of, and I feel like fans in general are going to kind of gloss over the Khalil Herbert news just because of what they didn't do. And I think that that's the part that's really frustrating, because they were making progress and they did address a major need, which was the running back position, because quite frankly, if you look at it the rest of the season, you're not going to rely on a Travion Williams to be your number 2 running back on a Super Bowl contending team, because that's what you're trying to be, right? So the Khalil Herbert news, and we'll get to, our full analysis. I want to talk about it. But when we discuss what they should have done, because that's the conversation, right? What could they have done? There were people out there and that were there for the taking, right? The obvious names, the Calais Campbells of the world. And this is the frustrating part, is saying, hey, maybe Azeez Ojulari, Malik, maybe that was reaching too high, right? Maybe that was a 4th round pick. Okay, fine. There were still other guys you could have went out there and you could have got.
Listen, I agree with you, but I also disagree, because I don't want to allow any room for misinterpretation.
Okay.
Azeez Ojulari was made available by the New York Football Giants. Everybody with an earshot around the league knew Azeez Ojulari was available to be had via trade. We set the price. I mean, the Giants set the price as to what that's going to look like and what they're hoping to gain from it, right? Marshawn Lattimore just went, right? We saw Marshawn Lattimore get traded for, a 3rd round pick, a 3rd, 5th, and like a 6th or something like that. And they also traded a 5th back. So I don't believe that Azeez Ojulari was shooting high, especially when you look at the Giants that are saying, hey, this guy is available. I don't think that's shooting high. I think it's getting out of your own way and realizing what is it that you're willing to give? What is it that you're willing to do in order to help achieve the ultimate goal, which is hopefully a Super Bowl? The fact of the matter is, we all could look at it and we say, this guy Trey Hendrickson is out there fighting for his life, play after play after play. What are you going to do to help make that guy's job easier? The organization had an opportunity. They had an opportunity right before their very own eyes to fix it. Lou lost his starting defensive back. Lou lost Cam Sample, which was a very important piece of the defensive line from a rotational standpoint. And you don't have any other significant pass rusher outside of Trey Hendrickson that is really applying pressure on these opposing quarterbacks. We all knew that. We all could identify that. And somehow, for a team that's trying to get back on track, that's sitting at 4-5, that has a huge game coming up against the Baltimore Ravens, you say, you know what? Maybe that 4th round pick that we're holding on to is a little bit too important to us. Maybe that 5th round pick is a little bit too important for us. Hell, maybe that 3rd round pick is a little bit too important to us. And you take yourself out of the running for an Azeez Ojulari. Let me be clear real quick. Teams that want to contend for championships leave no stone unturned. That does not mean get reckless. That doesn't mean be stupid and trade a 4th round pick for a receiver that hasn't done anything in the league like the Dallas Cowboys did with Jonathan Mingo. It's not that. That's recognizing, hey, you know what? We realize that we have issues on our team. Let's try and fix it. Let's try and fix it. That 4th round pick, if you wind up making the playoffs and you go on a run, you won't be missing that. That 5th round pick, you won't be missing that. Hell, maybe even that 3rd round pick. You probably won't be missing that. And there are a lot of people out there. that are already kind of backing what I'm about to say next. Hear me out. Daniel, could it just be it's already brewing in the pot right now? The scapegoating process is already brewing in the pot right now. Could it be? Hear me out. There are people out there that are saying, well, look at Lou. He's already been given a defensive-esque draft. I saw that take from some people on a tweet that I made regarding this, and I don't think people are looking at the bigger picture. You see, that's the narrative that's going to come out of this. It's, Lou was given Chris Jenkins. Lou was given McKinley Jackson a 5th-round pick. Let me be clear and say this again. The draft is for the future. Free agency and the trade deadline is for the now. As expecting a 5th-round pick or rookies to come in, regardless, and make wholesale changes to a defense when you've lost fundamental players that had so much importance on this defense, was never going to be the case. Losing DJ Reader, there was not a rookie that was going to come in and replace that guy. Losing the Jesse Bates of the world. Having issues at the cornerback position if a Dax Hill went down. That was never going to be the case. So when you look at it now, and I'm bringing these points up, everyone's going to forget that the Bengals did nothing to help Lou Anarumo's defense when the season's over. They're going to just say Lou's defense is bad. Well, that's the exact same thing that we've been saying for majority of the season. They got guys back, obviously, so they look a little better against, not so great offenses. But remember this moment when we carry out the pitchforks and this defense struggles against prominent teams. Remember this moment. Remember that in the face of adversity, in a time where you had a couple of weeks to trade for help on the defensive side of the ball, this team punted on that idea. Remember that. Remember they held on to that 4th round, 5th round pick, that 3rd round pick that may have gotten them pass rush help. They punted on that. Remember those. So when you call for someone's job, right, I just want you to remember these moments. And when I look at it, that's why I was clamoring in the offseason for a Jared Verse. That's why we were talking about the pass rush help. And let me be clear. I'm super happy with the return on investment from an Amarius Mims. Extremely happy with what that guy's shown. But the point is, there's giving you defensive players, right, that are truly difference makers and guys that are just probably the next best guy up on the board. Dax Hill, I can point to several picks that people are pointing to and make a case as to why they fell where they fell. Dax Hill was always looked at as a tweener. No one knew if, hey, you know what? Is he going to be a safety in the league, or is he going to be a corner in the league, or if he's going to be, nobody knew what he was going to be or where his best spot was going to be. All you knew is he made plays at Michigan in that defense. No one knew for certain what he was going to be. And you know what? That evaluation process, that comes down to Duke and his staff as well. That comes down to the scouting department. And so when, that's the NFL. Picks are gonna, be a miss. You're gonna have a swing and a miss on some picks. Some picks are gonna hit it out of the park for you. But honestly speaking, what I'm talking about here is I can genuinely point to one offseason in particular, maybe 2 offseasons in particular, where they actually went out and they addressed the defensive line, everything in our power to try to help improve this defensive line. And what happened? They went far. When they added the DJ Readers of the world, when they added the Trey Hendrickson of the world, when they added the Larry Okunjobis of the world, when they added the BJ Hill and Avia trade, they went far. And now they're relying on a guy in Trey Hendrickson, mind you. Hey, remember this? Mind you, when you look at a guy like Trey Hendrickson, who's performed the way that he's performed for you, right, and done an amazing job, you can't just rush on your laurels. What are you going to do to help that guy? This is very reminiscent of the Geno Atkins and how he was in Cincinnati, how he was a dominant presence, dominant force. And we said for years, could you imagine if that guy had another player next to him to take some of the pressure off of him? Because Carlos Dunlap took plays off and whatnot. But there are so many different things to look at from, I guess, this front office, from this scouting department, when it's like, you know what? What can we do to try to help this defense out? And the job doesn't just start and end in the offseason. about what you do throughout the entire season. This is a team that that people have said has championship aspirations. Okay, well, what are you going to do to try to maximize said window, Daniel?
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think that the point that you made, I think, is extremely valuable. And I think it's the point that you were saying about how the conversation shouldn't be about Lou. And this is Malik, I'm being honest. And it's kind of cool, that we're in this space. And it's kind of cool, obviously, the platform that you give people like myself to really change the narrative. The narrative, as you're saying, normally would be Lou is a scapegoat. I think we can change that now, right? The narrative should not be Lou is a scapegoat. This should be plastered everywhere saying, hey, no matter what happens the rest of the season, go look at what they did at the trade deadline. There was a clear need at running back. What did they do? They went out, they got a backup running back. There is a clear need at cornerback. And my fear, Malik, is, and this is a fear around the entire NFL, go look at what teams are currently struggling with. The Miami Dolphins struggled without Tua Tagovailoa. You can point to the backup quarterback position. You can point to the organization not prepping for the injury. I'm going to knock on wood here, Malik, but Trey Hendrickson is all that this pass rush truly has when it comes to serious juice. And I don't want to be in a position late in the season where we're blaming the organization saying, hey, well, crap, Trey's going to miss a game. Trey has to miss a series. What are we going to do for the pass rush? And that's what my concern is. And I think that's what the narrative shouldn't be is, hey, you're right. Lou Anarumo is he's working with what he has. You're not giving him what other teams are giving their teams, right? And this is another frustrating part. Go look at what, the other teams in the division, go look at what, the Pittsburgh Steelers are doing. Go look at what the Baltimore Ravens are doing. The Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers, what they've done consistently and what they did in this trade deadline was they went out and they looked at the wide receivers, Deontay Johnson, they went out and they traded him. They went out and traded for Mike Williams. They went out and they traded for Tre'Davious White. They went out and they traded for, so many guys. Preston Smith. Why are these other teams doing these contending teams doing this, but the Cincinnati Bengals weren't? So I think that's the frustrating part for me is how the Bengals had this opportunity in the trade deadline and they didn't go out there and do it. So I think that was really the seriously frustrating part for me when it comes to what the Bengals didn't do in the trade deadline. But we can talk about Khalil Herbert real quick. I think Khalil Herbert is a guy that, like I said, he fits a need. He fits exactly what you needed. You needed a backup running back, and you got one. He was a solid pass protector. He's a better pass protector than Chase Brown is. And he does provide a serious juice in the rushing attack. I think he is very similar as a rusher to a Chase Brown. Both guys that, are very quick on the feet, both guys that excel in the zone scheme, both guys that have, serious juice when it comes to rushes outside of the tackles. But the concern still stands for me when it comes to this actual rushing attack, right? When we talk about this, their rushing attack on 3rd and short, on 4th and short, it's not going to be a serious threat for the rest of the season. I went back and looked at the past 5 games. Malik, there was only 1 3rd or 4th and short that they converted as a rush. They were 1 for 5 or 1 for 6, and that comes from Zach Moss and that comes from Chase Brown and the rushing scheme. This team cannot succeed as a rushing team when it comes from short yardage. So this Khalil Herbert move it's clearly just a depth piece. So I like it. I think it's solid. I think he can add some juice in the rushing attack. I think he's a fine receiving back. He can make some big plays. He can make some splash plays. He can kind of be like a Samaje Perine in the sense, but is that a move that really moved me? No. And that's the frustrating part when you look at these other teams. The Detroit Lions, great job on them. Went out, they got Zadarius Smith, and Zadarius Smith is a guy that, he's seriously adding, and he was filling a major hole that the Detroit Lions have. And that's what the Cincinnati Bengals didn't do. So all around, I think that this team, they have a huge opportunity in front of them on Thursday. And they're just really betting on themselves. And that's the part where if they're betting on themselves, you have to be willing to deal with the consequences. And that's the nature of this business. And that's the part that we have to hold them to the standard. Hey, you're going to be held to the standard. If you lose this game, this is on you guys. This is on the organization. This is on you guys not prepping. And the scarier part, Malik, is if they win this game, right? And you get deep into the season and you're putting yourself in a position for the playoffs. I really don't want to be in a position where we have to look at the pass rush and we have to look at the cornerbacks and say, hey, damn, I really wish we had somebody because they had the chance here and they didn't go out and do it. So
Yeah, it's one of those things where again, it's you know, Bengals fans, you guys are allowed to feel your emotions. See people out there saying, "Oh, Bengals, you're overreacting," or I don't think you're overreacting. I don't think you're feeling the kind of way. I think the expectation was you wanted more, especially with the Diana Rossini report. A lot of people were expecting more movement, and people were asking me like, why aren't we seeing any like gifts from you?" It was like, I'm one of those people where there's a lot of speculation. Obviously, they were in on defensive tackles. I am not quite sure the names of the defensive tackles that they were in on. I was just told they were in on defensive tackles, and it's one of those things where, I personally don't want to just put out hopeful tweets or anything like that. So I hope I wasn't pissing too many people off when I wasn't coming forth and just putting out gifts, stuff like that, kind of beyond that a little bit at this point. But, you just hope for a team that knew that they had so much riding on momentum and wanting to do something differently. You were hoping that maybe that they would show a different, some different stripes, if you will. But now the onus is on people like Miles Murphy to step up, Joseph Asai to step up. You have to now rely on the players that you sort of relied on coming into the season. You have to. You have no choice to. And it will be. I think Lou gets more credit now if he's able to make it work
yes.
with the defensive line that he has right now.
Yes.
But were you about to say?
Yeah,
Something?
I think, and that's the point is like Lou Anarumo has done a fine job. Obviously, this defense has looked very bad at points, but recently they've looked good. That's the part that scares me, though, is you are going to have to rely on Joseph Asai. You're going to have to rely on Miles Murphy. And that's the part like I said, I really think that it's important that we do kind of hammer home this point. This isn't necessarily on Lou. He can do a better job, of course, but the personnel that you have, if you are a championship contending team, look at every other team. And this is where my mind personally goes, is saying, hey, these teams that are championship contending teams, they went out and they made the moves to better themselves. And Duke Tobin, they made one move, the Khalil Herbert move. But like I said, I think that the part that scares me is you're heading into a stretch of games where you have the, Baltimore Ravens, huge game. Then you got a Chargers team who's playing absurd. And you've got the bye week, but then you got a couple divisional games. It's just really, I'm just really concerned as far as how the rest of the season can unfold from a defensive standpoint. So
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Obviously, got a big against the Baltimore Ravens, and we'll be talking more about that on State of the Jungle tomorrow. With the crew, it's unfortunate, honestly. I think that's just the best way I can kind of put it. And I don't want to be seen as, again, a Debbie Downer at all to any way, shape, or form. But I think the expectations were just so high. I think you just really hope that maybe they would do more to try to help out this defense, especially knowing how big of a need that it was going in. I want to try to get into I want to get to some of these questions if we possibly can.
yeah, of course. So we had a question first off. Somebody was
And,
asking,
and let us know if the mics are getting better
Yeah,
now.
so-
Sorry about that. The technical difficulties. I see you guys are talking about it in the comment section. Just give a thumbs up if it's good. I just want to make sure it's absolutely clear for you guys.
So we had a question from earlier. Somebody was asking, is there any truth to the rumors about, Xavier Howard and a couple other people trying out for the Bengals?
I have not heard that. I saw that tweet out there. I have not heard that anywhere.
Okay. What's your thoughts overall on the Khalil Herbert signing for the Bengals?
Yeah, I think I've always been a fan of Khalil Herbert. I think him and Chase Brown are very similar backs. I think he's better back in pass protection. Yeah, I think that I've always liked Khalil Herbert. I'm interested to see why he fell out of favor in Chicago, but I do know that they used to rely on him a lot. I'm excited for what he could potentially bring, especially as a guy that's going to be spelling Chase Brown. I was worried about the durability of Chase Brown long term, especially the amount of carries that he got last game. And when you have a physical AFC North matchup coming up, when you have a physical matchup coming up against the Baltimore Ravens, you need all hands on deck. And I just wanted to make sure that they were putting a guy like Chase Brown in the best position to be successful. So, listen, the trade deadline is passed on to Baltimore. You got to look ahead and got to get ready to go.
So we got a question from Akila the Great. What's the vibe in the locker room? Do you think that this trade or lack of making a trade on the defense side, do you think it rubs players the wrong way?
I don't know. I think that That's a loaded question, especially because like you got a lot of young players on the defensive line that probably were hopeful that there weren't going to be any additions, because if you made any big additions to the defensive line, that means less playing time for them. That means that their playing time is going down. So undoubtedly, you probably got some players on the defensive line that are like, whew, breathing a sigh of relief. Some players that probably thought maybe they would be betrayed, even though the Bengals don't make trades. I think that we look at trade deadline drastically different from what players look at trade deadlines. I think some players breathe a sigh of relief because, especially if you're not performing the best, it allows you to be like, okay, now I could fully kind of go into my own. A guy like Myles Murphy probably is happy that there was no additions made to the defensive line, because now he has a chance to really step up. You get a guy like maybe DJ Turner. DJ Turner's probably happy that no additions were made to the cornerback room, because now he feels probably he's supplanted as the cornerback 2 there in Cincinnati. If you guys could do us favors while you're here, give this video a like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We have over 200 people watching us live, only 36 likes. We greatly appreciate you. We don't do super chats or anything like that. We just want you guys to join in the conversation. That's all.
We got a question here. It was from AKA Icy. Do you think that they should sign somebody that got waived? They should have an open roster spot. And also, my question would be, if they were to sign somebody off of the waivers, does that rectify any mistakes that they made by not trading for anybody?
I mean, who's really who are you bringing in? Andrew Booth, maybe? No, probably not. I wasn't a fan of him at Clemson. Personally, I don't know if there's anybody that you're bringing in right now that's going to make a significant change. A Browns defensive lineman got waived. Quentin Jefferson, I think his name was, or something like that.
Yeah.
Or Jeffries, whatever his name is. I don't think that he makes any difference on this defensive line, but who knows? I definitely wonder, will they bring back a Lawrence guy now? You hope that when they waived him, maybe they saw a defensive lineman move potentially down the pipeline. But yeah, it was definitely a swing and a miss. No matter which way you look at it, there's no salvaging it. It's not in this season. You have to make good on what you have right now. Maybe you move Myles Murphy on the inside more. I have no idea, but you got to do something different.
We had a question from Wes Hude. He said, Malik, how do you think that Trey feels about not getting any help? Do you think that this will affect his play at all?
I don't think he thinks about it that way. I think he's going to keep playing the way that I think he's going to keep playing the way that he's going to play. He's going to control what he can control. He's worried about probably getting that next contract and being secured. Obviously, him and the Bengals had that little bit of a disagreement in the offseason, which seemed like more of just a miscommunication than anything huge. I don't think he's worried like, damn, they didn't get me any help, but certainly I don't think he would have been opposed to any help. I just think he's hoping that the players that are in the building kind of step up. And I think a big part of the Bengals defensive line has been a little bit unlucky too. It's been a lot of players not being available. People like Sheldon Rankins just have not shown up at any way. I think we're going to start to see Chris Jenkins a little bit more though in the lineup than we give credit to. He showed up in a big way last week against the Raiders. He showed up in a lot of spots. For Myles Murphy, for people coming out there saying Myles Murphy's a bust, let me just say this really quickly. I want to make sure we're, we kind of hold our horses like that. I don't think Myles Murphy's been given the opportunity personally. I really don't think he's been given the ample opportunity to prove what he could be. He's getting snaps every now and again. But some defensive linemen kind of work in a rhythm. We're in a situation where we're seeing, other players play over him. They've started to spell him more and get him in the game sometimes. But even like Joseph Asai, I've seen more and more pass rushing sets than a guy like Myles Murphy. Myles Murphy is a guy that I think he just needs the opportunity and the time. It didn't help the injury, obviously, but I really, really hope that he starts to get the opportunity to prove what he is before we label him a bust. I don't want to just label him a bust title. I think the upside is there personally.
We got a question from Johnny 5556. He said, hey, Malik, just joined. I'm sure you've probably addressed this, but was it more of a Bengals issue regarding trades or teams not willing to move on their price? We appreciate you.
I'm sorry, say that one more time, Dan.
Basically, was it more of an issue of teams not willing to move on their price? Let's say a Giants saying, hey, it's a 4th round pick and that's it, or more of a Bengals issue when it comes to not creating the trade or not making a trade?
As far as I know, the Bengals are always very bullish on what they believe a player's value is, and they are not a team that is willing to give up too much, to get a player in the building. I definitely think that it's definitely not teams that are saying, hey, we don't want to trade with the Bengals. I think it's a thing of the Bengals probably low ball player. They always have this thought process that they have to win a trade. The Bengals 100% won the trade against the Chicago Bears. They gave up a 7th round pick for a running back that is fresh, that hasn't been utilized, and what we have seen do well in the league. So
do you think, and this was another question somebody was asking, Killer ED said, do you think that the only reason the Herbert trade was made was so Duke could say, hey, look, we made a trade, we tried?
I have my thoughts on that. And I'll tell you, I think that this was the bare minimum. I don't rate this at all. I think this was the bare minimum. I think that you placed the phone call Chicago Bears for a guy that they basically make inactive. He wasn't playing any significant time on this team at all, and you offer up a 7th-round pick. Got the job done. Oh, okay. You probably were even shocked that they that they did that for a 7th-round pick. I think this was the bare minimum. I don't think anybody should be giving Duke Tobin credit for making a trade and giving up a 7th-round pick for a Khalil Herbert. I think this was atrocious personally on his part.
We got a question here from James Wright. He was asking about Lou Anarumo. He said, if Lou makes the playoffs and with this defensive personnel and wins playoff games, do you think that Lou should be in consideration for a head coaching
100%,
job?
but I don't know if he will be. I think that the traction that he had to be a head coach probably went away. Personally, I don't think that I don't think that he'll find himself as a head coach, especially because of what how the defense performed to start the season. It would take something huge, like maybe the Bengals making a Super Bowl run, right? For a team to look at him like, well, look what he did with the defensive pieces that he had. But I do believe the defense will start to get a little better, just from the continuity perspective and getting, familiar faces, kind of seeing each other, looking at across from each other week in and week out. That's my thoughts.
We got a question here from Slade Wilson. He said, if Ojulari was available for 4th, do you think that the Bengals should have made that trade?
Let's
for
be
4th
clear,
round
he
pick?
was available for a 4th. I think the Bengals 100% should have made the trade for a 4th and a 5th if that's what it took. Because guess what? We're talking about something, a player that has 6 sacks on the season, albeit 2 against you, right? But a guy that can come around here and really make a significant impact. And you chose to stand pat. You chose to say that the players that we have, we feel good about. And it shows that while you say you're committed to a championship, while you say you're committed to getting better, well, you didn't do that. And I hope the eyes of the world are on you. And when I say the world, the eyes of Houday Nation, all right, Bengal Dome is on you. And this offseason, you have to make significant changes if you want this fan base to believe in the vision of this team, especially on the defense side of the ball, because everyone can look and say, hey, you know what? It wasn't enough what you've done for Lou. And I never like to come out and just say this for a coach, but I'm gonna say it right now. This was a shit show. This was bad. This was bad. You could have done something. You could have done something. There's so many teams out there that were expecting to contend that no longer are in contention. And guess what? They were looking to potentially sell players and trade players. And, placing a phone call, making a trade, and just seeing what potentially that player could go for is I wonder what gets done in that. It's not just enough to just be close to trade for a player. Get over the finish line. If you're serious about a championship, get over the finish line. And you didn't do that.
So we got a question. Justin S. was saying, I don't think management thinks that this team can win this year. This may sound like a weird question, but do you think that they're confident that this team can make a serious run in the playoffs and even win a Super Bowl? Do you think that that's what their mindset is? Hey, this team right now can win a Super Bowl.
Listen, I think that they are looking at it and they are saying that, but I think that there's a built-in excuse now that's not named Zach Taylor if they don't. And I think it's Lou Anarumo, and I think it's very fucked up and unfortunate. Personally, that's just how I feel. I think that will be. I don't need to wait until January. I know who the scapegoat's going to be if this ship doesn't get corrected. I know who it's going to be, and guess who will still be the head coach? Zach Taylor. We made changes, but we didn't make enough changes, and then that absolves you. Listen, remember, a change absolves you from making wholesale changes. If you make some tweak, it absolves you of making wholesale changes, meaning we won't look at Lou. I mean, we won't look at Duke. We won't look at Zach, but we will make a change. We'll make a change on the defensive coaching side of the ball and say, hey, it was just a defensive coordinator. Okay. Well, we'll see. The fact of the matter is what today told me was the Bengals, while they've made strides, they have a fundamental issue in the front office, and his name is Duke Tobin and staff and company. There needs to be a philosophical change from the organization's approach to build a championship roster. And I hope, and I'm going to keep using my platform and this desk and this mic week after week to talk about that, because remember what I told y'all a couple of weeks ago. I said how they approach the trade deadline will tell me who I need to look at directly when the offseason comes. The Bengals need to make changes from a front office perspective. They need a new voice in there. They need someone different in there to bring new ideas to the table that can potentially take this roster over the top. You've made a lot of changes in terms of, Joe Burrow is your quarterback. We realize that we need to put a winner on the football field. Okay. But that doesn't just mean the roster that you came into the season with, right, is the roster that you leave the season with. And I think that was a big part of the discourse that we were having the last couple of weeks, the last couple of shows. This was my fear. And here we are.
Do you think that there is a world where, and somebody, Iron Man, was saying how the entire fan base knows the issue is also the head coach, Zach Taylor. Do you think that there is a world where he could still be gone after the season if the season doesn't go the right way?
I mean, potentially, but I mean, tell you right now, the issue isn't just Zach Taylor. Like today proved this to me. The issue isn't just Zach Taylor. The issue isn't Olu Anarumo. The issue is the family's approach, their mentality towards trying to leave no stone unturned for a championship. You traded for a 7th round pick for a running back that is a free agent after this season. All because, and it took Zach Moss being out with a neck injury that he's going to miss the remainder of the season for you to do that. But you did nothing to help your defensive coordinator when he lost his starting cornerback, who ran away with the cornerback position against another guy who struggles in coverage because he's a little too handy. And what do you know? You see the same exact thing in season from a DJ Turner. I think that I feel like the game against the Raiders probably left them feeling that they could approach it a little bit differently in terms of not being as aggressive as maybe they had to be. There is an issue with this team, and it starts in the front office. It's all about the fundamental approach. Remember, Zach Taylor and them can only coach the players you give them. But the approach, the lackadaisical approach that you did for the defense side of the ball, when everybody could look at it and say Trey Hendrickson is the only viable pass rusher on this team, you keep waiting for the ghost of Joseph Asai to wake up and for Joseph Asai to be that pass rusher that you were praying for him to be. You keep putting all your onus on a guy like Myles Murphy, who I think is going to be a good pro in this league, but you got to give him the snaps, but who came into the season with an injury. You keep putting the onus on these guys, and you keep trying to sell this bullshit to this fan base. Guess what? They're picking up on what you're putting down. You're not as smart as y'all think you are about your approach to building this team. And there are a lot of truthers out there that are kind of come to the defense and say, well, this team makes calls. This team trying to get better. This is not trying to get better. This is the bare minimum. This is just scratching the surface. This is basically you need a C to pass class, and you got to see by the skin of your teeth. That's what this is. It's a shit show.
We got a couple questions. One from Bullion. He said, Joe and Jamar seem frustrated even when they are winning. Do you think that this is a symptom of the organizational issues that seem to be present, or do you think it's something else?
I think they want to win. I think they're winners, and they know that they can be better. That's what I think. And I think they want to leave no stone unturned. And I can't fault the guys. I want to win, right? We strive for perfection here at TWSN, right? Our website already has over 1 million views for the month. And I'm already like, hey, why aren't we doing higher? Let's go big. Let's keep going. Let's be great. So I resonate with wanting to strive for greatness personally, and they want to win. They want to win bad. And guess what? Those two are going to force the organization to change. They're going to. They'll have no choice, or you're going to find yourself in a situation in which you lose those players.
We got a question from Delta Sapphire. Said, what do you think of bringing in Mike Edwards? Mike Edwards' safety was released. He said it wouldn't make much sense, but seeing his ties to the city of Cincinnati feels imminent. I'll just say, me personally, like at the safety position, I think that you have too much of a log jam to even try to bring in a safety before you even go and bring in other positions. That's what I would say. Like, you still got Jordan Battle, Von Bell, Geno Stone. I just don't know if that's the first move I would make. But Malik, what do you think about Mike Edwards after he was released?
I don't. It's just too much going on at the safety position. You need to figure out the guys that you got here. I wouldn't be shocked if he went back to the Bucs personally.
Yeah, I would say Bucs, even Chiefs too. Question from Alex. He said, do you think that T. Higgins' price tag goes down with how much he's been injured recently? I know we talked about this on the show 2 days ago, but what do you think about his price tag?
T's going to get paid regardless, but if I'm looking at a team, how could you pay the guy a ridiculous amount of money when he's dealt with soft tissue injuries. The soft tissue injuries scare me more than just the available. I mean, that's just scary overall because you wonder how much of it is just posturing. You wonder how much of it is actual, uh, a real thing. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But hey, he's going to get paid regardless. But just make sure you have those built-in incentives if you're a team to protect your ass. So
once again, if you guys have any questions, make sure you guys drop them down below. We got a question here from Bengals fandom. This is more of a, an actual in-game thing. He said, why won't the Bengals move Trey around to the weakest offensive lineman like Chris Jones? Is he unable to? And if he is, he shouldn't be paid Chris Jones money.
that's a great question. I have no idea why, but it would be nice to see him get moved around a little bit more, just to see if he can even do it. But I do believe that Trey Hendrickson is just an elite player overall. I doubt it's a thing of he can't do it. I also wonder, is it a thing of the players around him can't do it? Maybe they're more comfortable on that side. So Trey Hendrickson is just sort of regulated. I don't know.
And I would also say, like, I think it would be smart at some point to move around. But if you're saying, hey, Trey's confident, we've seen him go up against the best offensive lineman, even, dominate. So maybe he's just fully confident saying, hey, I would much rather go up against the best offensive lineman on my side, on the side that I know I'm much better at. But we had a question here. Talk about the cornerback room, Malik, from Chi. Do you think that Josh Newton or DJ Ivy should get the chance to start at cornerback at some point this year?
I would like to see Newton. I like what I saw. I thought that one call on Newton was a phantom call the other night. I'd like to see more from him. I know that he showed a lot of promise in training camp, and I think that he could be a good pro. I won't say he will be a good pro. I think he could be a good pro, but I think he definitely obviously needs the reps and the opportunity to prove that.
We got a question from Travis Schwaller saying, do we know what teams that the Bengals tried to trade with at all?
Outside of the Giants, being in on the Giants, I have no idea. I'll know more for State of the Jungle tomorrow. For sure.
Question from James Wright said, do you think that we're going to go on our annual midseason run? Do you think that we're going to win on Thursday against the Ravens?
This last question I'll answer. I feel I'm conflicted. I think that if you beat the Ravens, they will go on a run. I will feel very confident in saying that. I think if they beat the Ravens, I think this team will have a newfound energy about them. I just think you got to have all hands on deck for this game.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we want to thank you guys so much for joining in for an impromptu edition of the Sit Down with Malik Wright, trade deadline recap. Obviously, people aren't the happiest with things right now. People feel like the Bengals should have been more aggressive at the trade deadline, and I can definitely feel that sentiment as well. I'll just say keep your heads up. A lot of football to be played. Trade deadline is passed. Look ahead to the Baltimore Ravens. I'll be live at the end of that game, as I am after every single game for post game. And I'll be live tomorrow with the boys for State of the Jungle, as we bring you all the action, and we get you guys all set and ready for Bengals at Baltimore. It's a huge game coming up. It's a big game coming up. The Bengals need to figure out a way to get it done. They need to figure out a way to get it done, leave no stone unturned, and beat Baltimore. Leave Baltimore with a victory. It's a huge game. It's a big game. And I'm looking forward to it. Listen, appreciate y'all so much. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. And until next time, Hoo day.
So kick that.